Drugémon, The Long Road to Recovery Chapter 4. The fighting dojo, the sprawling corporate metropolis of Saffron City, loomed ahead of them, a stark contrast to the chaotic, hedonistic rave of Cerulean. Saffron was cold, sterile, and intimidatingly clean. The monolithic Sylph Company building dominated the skyline, a monument of dark glass and steel that seemed to absorb the light, its 1,000 windows like the unblinking eyes of a predator. The streets below were wide and immaculate, but eerily quiet, populated by the ghosts of a hurried, unseen populace. Ash, his face etched with a permanent weariness, adjusted the makeshift sling that held Pikachu. His small partner was awake but listless, the physical toll of the withdrawal leaving him drained and weak. He occasionally whimpered, a small, pathetic sound, and nuzzled his face into the worn fabric of Ash's jacket, seeking a comfort that was becoming increasingly hard to find. Misty said the dojo master here could tell us a safe way to Vermilion. Ash said softly, his words meant only for Pikachu, a way around the main roads. We just get the info and we're gone. Stay low, buddy. He began to navigate the imposing streets, keeping to the long, sharp shadows cast by the massive buildings. There was an oppressive atmosphere of paranoia here. Sleek, black security cameras mounted on every corner pivoted to follow his movements, their silent scrutiny a constant, unnerving pressure on the back of his neck. The fighting dojo was a relic from another time, a traditional, low, slung wooden building that stood as an oasis of old, world architecture in the city of glass and steel. Ash remembered it well, but as he drew closer, he realized something was wrong. The sounds coming from inside weren't the usual sharp ki of disciplined training, the clean snap of wood on wood. Instead, he heard guttural roars of exertion and the heavy, rhythmic, metallic slam of weights. As he watched, the dojo doors slid open and a hulking trainer with unnaturally large muscles and bulging veins in his neck stepped out. He was carrying a Hitmonchan that looked similarly muscled, its movements stiff and aggressive. The trainer shot Ash a hostile glare as he passed, a look of pure, unwarranted aggression. Ash hesitated at the entrance, a sense of deep unease creeping over him. He clutched Pikachu a little tighter, the small, warm weight a fragile comfort, and stepped inside. The interior had been desecrated. It was no longer a training hall but a grotesque, high-intensity gym. The traditional tatami mats were gone, ripped out and replaced by scuffed black rubber flooring. Where scrolls of ancient fighting techniques had once hung, there were now glossy posters of impossibly muscular Pokémon, their bodies twisted into unnatural poses. The air was thick with the cloying smell of sweat and something else, something vaguely chemical that stung the back of his throat. Fighting-type Pokémon, Machokes, Primapes, Hitmonlees were scattered around the room, lifting massive weights, their bodies grotesquely defined and vascular. They grunted and roared with exertion, their faces contorted in masks of pain and rage. In a dark corner, a trainer was injecting his Machoke with a syringe filled with a viscous, glowing green liquid. The Pokémon's muscles immediately seemed to swell and tighten, and it let out a roar of pure, unadulterated rage. Ash stared in disgust. This wasn't a dojo anymore. It was a breeding ground for steroid abuse, a temple dedicated to a false, chemically induced strength. At the center of the room, a massive Machamp with 4 huge, vascular arms was pressing an absurd amount of weight, its face a mask of concentration. Its eyes were bloodshot, and its breathing was a harsh, labored rasp. This was clearly the alpha of the gym, the champion of this corrupted dojo. The old karate master, a man Ash remembered as being wise and honorable, was nowhere to be seen. In his place, a younger, brutish man, with cold eyes and a predatory grin watched over the proceedings. This, Ash surmised, was Koga, the new master. Ash approached him cautiously, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "I'm looking for the master of the dojo," he said, his voice even. "I need information." Koga looked him up and down, his eyes lingering on the frail, pathetic-looking Pikachu in the sling. He scoffed, a sound of pure contempt. "The old man is gone. I'm in charge now, and we don't give information, we trade it for strength. You and that pathetic rat, you have no strength." The other trainers and Pokémon in the dojo began to stop what they were doing, their attention drawn to the confrontation. The air grew thick with a testosterone-fueled hostility. Ash felt the gazes on him like physical blows. "I'm not looking for a fight," he said, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "I just need to know the safest route south. I can pay." Koga laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Your money is worthless here. Strength is the only currency that matters. And you look bankrupt." He gestured with his chin towards the steroid-addled Machamp, which had just finished its set. It dropped the massive weights with a floor, shaking crash, and lumbered to its feet. "Get out of my dojo before my champion decides to use your little friend as a stress ball." The Machamp glared at Ash and Pikachu, its forearms flexing menacingly. A low, continuous growl rumbled in its chest, a promise of violence. Pikachu, sensing the imminent danger, trembled and let out a terrified squeak, trying to hide its face in Ash's shoulder. Ash knew he was hopelessly outmatched. A straight fight was impossible. He needed to be smarter. His eyes darted around the room, falling on a rack of different, colored vials the steroids. "What happened to honor?" Ash's voice was cold, cutting through the thick air. "To discipline, this isn't strength. It's a chemical lie. You're killing your Pokémon for a cheap thrill." Koga's face darkened with rage. The insult had hit its mark. "You know nothing of power," he snarled, the Machamp. "Teach him some respect." The Machamp roared, its eyes glowing with a terrifying roid rage, and charged. It was incredibly, unnaturally fast for its size. Ash dodged the first wild punch, which smashed a huge crater in the wall right where his head had been moments before. He wasn't trying to fight, he was trying to survive. He ducked and weaved, using his agility against the Pokémon's brute, uncontrolled force. The Machamp became a whirlwind of destruction, its forearms punching indiscriminately, destroying equipment and smashing pillars in its fury. "Is this your champion?" Ash yelled as he dodged another clumsy haymaker punch. "He can't even land a punch. He's all rage and no focus." The taunt worked perfectly. The Machamp bellowed in fury and lunged, ignoring Koga's commands to be more precise. As it charged, Ash slid across the floor, grabbing a handful of the chalk dust used for weightlifting. He came up in a crouch, and as the Machamp loomed over him, he threw the dust directly into its eyes. The Machamp roared in pain and frustration, temporarily blinded. It began to swing its arms wildly, uncontrollably. One of its powerful, flailing backhands caught Koga completely by surprise, sending him flying across the room to crash into the rack of steroids. Glass shattered everywhere. The precious vials of rage and bulk lay smashed on the floor, their glowing contents pooling in useless, shimmering puddles. The other trainers gasped in collective shock. The Machamp, its rage subsiding as the stinging pain in its eyes took over, looked at the destruction it had wrought. It saw its master groaning on the floor and the precious drugs destroyed. The roid rage in its eyes faded, replaced by a moment of confused, childlike panic. Ash seized his chance. He stood over the winded, humiliated Koga. "The route," he demanded, his voice cold and commanding. "Now, Koga," clutching his ribs, glared up at him with pure, unadulterated hatred. "The underground path," he spat, the words like venom, "beneath the Sylph Company building. It's an old subway tunnel. It'll take you straight to the southern gate. Now get out." Ash didn't need to be told twice. He slipped out of the dojo and disappeared into the labyrinthine alleys of Saffron. He leaned against a cold brick wall, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked down at Pikachu, who had watched the entire, terrifying confrontation with wide, fearful eyes. He gently stroked Pikachu's head, trying to soothe both his friend and himself. "It's okay, buddy," he whispered. "We're okay. We got what we needed." He looked up at the towering, oppressive form of the Sylph Company building. His expression was grim. Another city, another form of corruption, another darkness to navigate. He pulled his hood back up, hiding his face from the ever-watchful cameras, and headed for the entrance to the subway, continuing his journey through the dark and rotting underbelly of the Kanto region.